And welcome, everyone, to Rock M Radio. This is the beginning of a brand new episode of Dive Cuts. It's season 8 already, and we are here to talk about your Missouri basketball Tigers as the only podcast strictly talking about the Mizzou basketball Tigers. How about that? I am your host, Sam Snelling. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me on your left. Please take a moment to hit the like button below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Help us kind of grow the channel a little bit. On your right, from the plains of Glendale, Missouri, down there in Central County, Central St. Louis County, is Matt Watkins at Data Mizzou on Twitter. Mr. Watkins, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good. I wouldn't really call it the plains. It's gentle rolling hills. A little woody.
I know. Yeah, that was more like I've always kind of referred to where Matt Harris is from as the plains of Indiana.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so I was more making fun of myself for always kind of referring to it as the plains. So it's season 8. We told Harris, don't bother showing up because you don't need to do anything other than, crunch more video on, some guys who are lined up with some visits. In the meantime, you and I are going to talk about everything that we've missed because there has not been a new episode of Dive Cuts. We basically took the entire month of August off. I didn't really plan that, to be honest. It was just one of those things where it's just like there was nothing to talk about. Then the non-conference schedule came out, and it's just like, you know what? Like, that can wait. Because there was, when it came down to it, like what we learned from that, sort of getting dropped was really not a whole lot. Like we already kind of knew, the big names, so to speak. We knew about, Memphis. We knew Kansas. We knew Illinois. We knew that they were already getting Cal in the ACC Challenge. I love that Missouri gets the westernmost ACC team in this new conference realignment.
It is a grudge match, though. Dennis Gates' alma mater.
Yeah. And I believe the last time Missouri played Cal was in it was the Hall of Fame Classic. It was in
Kansas City, I believe.
Yeah, in 2012, and they blew the doors off them.
Mm-hmm.
Good old days. But yeah, so there wasn't really. I mean, we kind of knew there wasn't really going to be a whole lot. The big question was whether or not they were going to work out a date with Memphis, or not Memphis, sorry, Minnesota. They did not. You have to excuse me. I feel like I'm going to cough here. But yeah, so obviously a guy is coaching for his job up there. He doesn't want a road trip to Missouri after Missouri was just up there and beat them. Let's see if we can push that off for another year. So that's why I'm sure there was some struggles to find dates. I don't know if you saw Minnesota's non-conference schedule. Similar to Missouri, left something to be desired.
Worse. It's worse.
It is worse, but one thing, like Mizzou is fortunate to always have Illinois. Mm-hmm. The series with Kansas is back on. Those are 2 marquee games you're going to have on the schedule. Hopefully with KU from here on out. Certainly with Illinois, we know that game has gotten too popular to not be played. So you basically are starting from a standpoint of having, key fixtures. And then for the most part, they've kind of had these MTEs. Dennis has kind of shied away a little bit from the MTEs. He's gone to these, bring in terrible, low major programs and have it rotate and call it an MTE. It ends up loading the schedule. And I think I guess we're getting into it since since that's where we are. But it definitely sets the schedule up to be Not great. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that there are ways for this schedule to be better. And I certainly like. So I like the Jacksonville State game. So I guess I'll run through it really quickly. November 4th at Memphis, and then they are home basically until they see Illinois. Home against Howard on November 8th. On the 11th, they play Eastern Washington. On the 14th, Mississippi Valley State. On the 22nd, Pacific. On the 24th, Arkansas Pine Bluff. On the 27th, Lindenwood. Then the aforementioned ACC SEC Challenge. Cal comes in. Then you welcome KU that's December 8th. And then Long Island University comes in on the 14th. On the 17th, you get Jacksonville State. The 22nd is Illinois. And then you wrap up the non-con with a home game against Alabama State. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those games are against teams that are inside the top 300. And I think that's where I have the most issue. Howard is 225. So that would be 7. Yeah. So Howard is 220. So these are Bart Torvik. In fact, with our new with our new features here, I'm going to share the screen so we can just put it up on the screen. T-page share. So anybody who isn't familiar, you can go to barttorvik.com and you can look at projects Missouri to be 63rd in the country. Here are his projected 10 contributors. Something can be taken with a grain of salt there, as I don't think anybody projects Jeremy Sanchez to be a contributor this year. But here's the schedule. So if you see red here, that's projected loss. If you see green, it's projected win. And you could see like this run here, Howard, Eastern Washington, Mississippi Valley State, Pacific, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Lindenwood. None of those games are supposed to be close. Howard is projected to be the closest at 17 points. Alabama State is 18.5 points. So this is what I was saying. Jacksonville State, there's a championship pedigree with their coach. Ray Turner, I think is his name, won championships at Kentucky Wesleyan, Division II, Oklahoma City, and NAIA. He's been to the NCAA tournament, Western Kentucky, and now he's at Jacksonville State. And they've moved up from the Ohio Valley all the way up into Conference USA. So that's a decent game. Outside of that, we pointed, you have Memphis, you have Kansas, you have Illinois, and you have Cal, which, Cal's not really expected to be very good. It'll at least be a high major team, but everybody else is lacking, I guess.
Yeah, it's it's not good. When you look at this, there's kind of two ways to analyze it. First, what's it doing for your team? And after last year, when Mizzou went 0-19 against SEC competition, there is some virtue to the thought that, hey, we need to go out and win some games. The schedule reflects that. I don't really buy into that too much, and the reason why, and it's a bigger topic than what we're discussing here, is that Mizzou has a whole lot of new guys on their team. Yes, you want to get them integrated. You want to have everyone getting on the same page, all this, that, and the other. Dennis Gates did that wonderfully in year one. But last year doesn't really matter to me as far as how you schedule, because turnover is so rapid now. Mizzou's got 5 transfers coming in. They've got 5 freshmen coming in. They've got 5 holdovers, 2 of which missed significant time a year ago. What happened last year doesn't really matter except to perception with the fan base. And honestly, if you're playing this slate of games at home, you're looking at a pretty tough sell and getting people in the door against this level of competition. Now, sure, if you reel off, what is it, 10 wins straight and come home and play Kansas, yeah, it's going to be packed. It would be packed if Mizzou played them at the end of last year. That's just the way it is. But this schedule, I don't think, is really going to give the people who follow Mizzou really any belief in what they are until the middle of December at best. Even if you knock off Memphis, Memphis is a complete crap show right now. They've got NCAA allegations over their head. They're, institutional control, lack of institutional control. They fired 4 coaches.
Yeah, they lost all kind of coaches.
Hardaway even be the head coach when the season rolls around? We don't know. But you beat them, yeah, you get a little bit of momentum, but it's, what does it do for your bottom line? And more importantly to me, what does it do for your postseason prospects? And that's the second aspect of this. This doesn't really do anything for that. Unless you win Cal, Kansas, Illinois, or Memphis, none of these wins are going to move the needle one bit. The only way that it really matters is in very limited circumstances when you're right around the bubble. The committee tends to kind of disregard a lot of the things that they follow and go for wins over teams that have less wins. So if Mizzou, let's say, goes 9-9 in conference and they've got 20, 21 wins, they might be seen a little bit higher than a team with similar metrics that has 18 or 19 wins, even though it came against Alabama State and Eastern Washington. That to me isn't a big enough reason to schedule like this, especially with to get the fan interest back up. There's just such limited circumstances where this works. Now, having said that, if Dennis Gates and his team go through and perform well in this and perform well in the conference season, it doesn't really matter. They'll be in the tournament. But my theory is that if you've got a good team, and I think they have a pretty decent team this year, you should be able to beat some at least decent teams in the non-conference. And, scheduling is hard now, especially when you're not willing to play neutral site tournaments, which is the MTE, the multi-team event. Dennis Gates doesn't seem to really want to do that, which is his prerogative. But anymore, that's how you're getting quality games in the non-conference. No one wants to go visit other people's arenas anymore. Coaches are chickens. It's not one coach is all of them. They've gone so far out of their way to schedule multi-team events or neutral site games in half-empty arenas, so they get the bump up when it comes to quad rankings and the wins. And now instead of playing the secret scrimmages, they do these charity exhibitions, or just flat-out exhibitions where they play at each other's arena, but the games don't count. It's a preseason game. Right. Why aren't we playing these games during the regular season? The reason why, coaches don't want to lose. That's it. They're scared to lose, and it really is a detriment to the sport as a whole, in my opinion. That's an aside from Mizzou. That's not directed towards the Mizzou program. That's everyone. Look at non-conference schedules and point out to me the good home games that are played on campus. They just don't exist. Yeah, Kansas won.
Well, yeah, and I think that there are teams at the upper tiers of the sport. Kansas being an example. North Carolina has a good history of not being afraid to sort of just travel. Arizona has recently kind of taken up the mantle of being willing to schedule. But I think what you see is these programs like Missouri, and one of the things that I put on the forums recently was like as part of my preview series, I go back and I sort of I take the average KenPom rating over like the last 10 years, and then every year I grow it up so it's still within the last 10 years, and the last 10 years still includes the last 3 years of the Kim Anderson era. So obviously there's a bit of an anchor there. But Missouri is last in the SEC, and that includes all 16 teams for their KenPom rating over the last 10 years. So we're not talking about a team and a program that has been consistently good We're talking about a program that has, in their best years, slipped into the NCAA tournament, and in their worst years, been like embarrassingly at the bottom of the league. And so I kind of understand like why coaches are a little hesitant. They want to rack up wins, but at the same time, like, and this is why I like, as much as I didn't like Eric Musselman, I did like the way he scheduled, because he would go out and he would play more Jacksonville States and like fewer Mississippi Valley States, like
quality mid majors.
Yeah, like teams that can help you a little bit. And yeah, you're not going to beat them by 30, and maybe you don't get to go as deep into your bench as you want, but it's going to be a more competitive game, and it's a game that even if you play like your B or C game, you're still probably going to win, right? And so I would like, that's why like I kind of highlighted that game, and it's actually still highlighted on the screen. But Jacksonville State, they're not going to be great. They're probably going to be pretty good. It's a top 200 team. That's not a world beater. They're Conference USA. It's a team that's going to be lucky if they're in postseason conversation. But 193 in the country versus all these teams 312, 363, 322, 360, 323, like that run from Eastern Washington to Lindenwood is horrific. And like I don't understand the benefit to your team of playing that string of games without anybody thrown in to sort of mix it up. They really needed to like remove Mississippi Valley State and put in another quality-ish, mid-major team. And I understand there was a lot of teams out there, and everybody's trying to kind of find games, and you're having to create these contracts, and it does get complicated. That's why like I told Rocco, like one of the things I'd really like to see is I'd like to just see like a conference, or not, an NCAA basketball like scheduling czar, like somebody that like really forces teams to go out and play, better non-conference schedules, and not just like everyone across the board, but actually like setting up more regional matchups. Getting Missouri to play like Missouri State more often, getting Kansas and Wichita State to play, getting Illinois and Illinois State to play, making sure that we're seeing, those kinds of more regional matchups, and a lot less of, flying in Eastern Washington, into Missouri. And, I'm sure if I pulled up Eastern Washington's, schedule, there would probably be some games that are even further away from Missouri.
It's
actually I just did, and no, Missouri is the farthest away, so everything else is on the West Coast.
Scheduling now is just, the problem is endemic. I mean, you've got, part of the problem is that you've got the power rankings that feed into your NCAA selection criteria, and power rankings don't really cap margin of victory. So if you go out and play Mississippi Valley State, win by 30, it doesn't really help you. If you win by 40, it helps a little bit more. If you win by 50, it helps even more. But guess what? If you're good enough to beat those teams by that amount of points versus a team who can beat them by 30 points, you're probably good enough to go play teams better than Mississippi Valley State and not worry about losing. It's just, let's run up the margins against bad teams. Well, you still have to be pretty good to do that. It's not just like, oh, well, we're going to try harder. That's not how it works. There's 40 minutes in a game and 70 possessions in a game. You have to execute. So why are we just trying to run up the margins on bad teams when, hey, here's an idea. Why don't we play some quality teams? And this, again, isn't Mizzou. This is all college basketball, and it aggravates me to no end. Mizzou's run of bad teams is an example of that. There are many, many examples. Minnesota's schedule, which we talked a little bit about earlier, I looked at that, and I think since Ben Johnson has been there, this is his fourth year, He's played 3 true road games in non-conference, 2 of them which were in the ACC Big Ten Challenge when that was still a thing. He's had 1 scheduled non-conference road game, and that was a holdover from the prior coaching staff. You know, you simply are refusing to play road games. Yes, you're building a program, but guess what? Minnesota's been garbage for 15 years. And guess what? When you keep scheduling like that, you're going to continue to be garbage because it's not going to do anything to help you along the way. Rant over, but it's a problem, and it's not Mizzou, it's not Minnesota, it's everyone. If they are playing quality teams, they're doing them. And where they South Dakota now is the popular place for teams to fly in and play in front of no one. Why? Why are we doing this?
Yeah, so that is, one of the things that, again, anybody who's listening and hasn't listened to my conversation with Rocco Miller, who's the bracketeer.org, really, really smart schedule guy, bracketologist, helps teams find games, and he gave sort of like a little bit of a behind the scenes. I mean, not completely behind the scenes, but a little bit more like, teams are constantly looking for these sort of like middling neutral site matchups because they don't have to go, they don't have to go into another arena. If they win the game, it helps their tournament resume. If they lose the game, it doesn't necessarily hurt the resume. And he actually pointed out Mississippi State as like a good example of a team that's sort of doing it. And you look at Mississippi State's schedule, and it's not great. It really isn't. I'll pull it up real quick because I can get to it very quickly here. So they open with West Georgia, who I honestly did not know was a Division I team. Georgia State, 211 in Bart Torvik, Southeastern Louisiana, 289. And they play a neutral against Utah. They're at SMU. SMU probably will be halfway decent. A neutral against UNLV, home against Pittsburgh. That might be the ACC Challenge. Home against Prairie View A&M, a neutral against McNeese, which is probably one of those kind of like neutral where they're like playing in Jackson, Mississippi. Central Michigan neutral, and then they're at Memphis. So that's like several neutral court games, but it's not against anybody really good. But if they win those games, it's going to look good on their tournament resume because they're beating Utah, SMU, UNLV, Pitt, all teams that may or may not even be in the conversation for the NCAA tournament bid. But they're going to get help on the resume by playing those games. And Rocco really was pointing that out. And like, if you take a look at the rest of their schedule, it looks a lot like what Dennis does. Mm-hmm. Missouri does have, like I said, Missouri's got the benefit of playing Illinois and Kansas. There's very few teams who have Kansas on their schedule that are not in the Big 12. That's a good thing for your tournament resume. Illinois, very likely tournament team. I think you and I are just basically saying, like, let's take a couple of those, the low-hanging fruit on your schedule, the teams that are truly awful, and just drop those and go find somebody a little better.
And play games on campus. Just stop with the neutral court nonsense. Just stop it. It's stupid. Okay? Let just get rid of it. And if I were in charge of NCAA basketball, the very first thing I would do is take neutral sites off the quad system, unless they're conference tournament games, which everyone plays. Get rid of the benefit of getting a bump for playing a neutral game. No, they're both home games for both the teams. Just stop this. Go play home and road games. The only way you get a bump is by going into someone else's gym and beating them. Stop going to Sanford, Pentagon, and South Dakota. Stop going and playing in NBA arenas where no one shows up. Like Mizzou playing, I don't know, for example, Villanova in Chicago. No. That's a home game for both teams. You're not getting the neutral site benefit. Absolutely not. Get rid of it. It's
yeah. I think we're mostly in agreement there. But yeah, so like I think there's a path forward. Obviously, it's not going to happen this year. That run from like, no matter what happens at Memphis, with everything going on in Memphis, they should probably beat Memphis now. If you're starting like 10 or 11-0 and then going into Kansas, hey, good for them. But there's going to be a whole lot of people for basically the entire month of November who are just not going to pay attention. And I think like that's another sort of, part of it is like, and I get like every team in these power conference leagues, they're going to get their Q1 opportunities in league play. I'm not worried about Q1, Q2. I want fewer games that are going to be Q4 and, the worst possible outcome is you only win by like 15 points. Like that's just, we've got to get away from playing those games. Let's stop talking about the non-conference schedule because I think it's just going to upset us both. And this is, hey, season 8. We've got an exciting whole new season plan. We are going to have to suffer through that November, but things are on the horizon here. Matt Watkins, there's a lovely sort of borderline high 4-star, low 5-star kid, plays at Link Academy. His name is Davion Hanna. It was announced this weekend that he is visiting. Sorry, it was announced. Was it just yesterday?
Yeah,
that he's visiting this weekend.
Right. Little word salad there. That's okay.
Yeah, I was trying.
He's visiting this weekend. Announced yesterday.
He is visiting this weekend. He is a guy who we've sort of quietly had on our radar for a little while. I believe Mr. Harris got a couple birdies on that one as far as Mizzou is sort of trying to sort of get in on Hanna. For anybody who's unfamiliar, he's a Wisconsin-Milwaukee native. Earlier in the summer, he cut his list down to like 12 teams or something. Missouri was not on it. And at the time, it was like, oh, like, don't pay attention to these lists. A lot of the lists cut down tend to be, trying to sort of figure out NIL stuff. Who's actually going to be, really involved. Missouri is back involved. They're getting a visit. That's usually a good sign. Who else is involved? We know your favorite Wisconsin was trying to get a visit.
Well,
like that may not happen.
Yeah, interestingly enough, he visited Alabama last weekend, I believe. If it wasn't last weekend, the weekend before. He's got a visit scheduled to Mizzou, which somehow got jumped not only into the list of visits that were 9 before, 10 now. It's subsequently been reduced to 5 visits total that have been scheduled and kept. Alabama, Missouri, and I don't know the order, but Michigan State, Ohio State, and Cincinnati are the other schools currently scheduled to have visits. And there were some other schools like Wisconsin, which I don't know why anyone would want to go there. But I think Pitt was another one, and a couple other teams that were involved. But they got the dreaded looking to reschedule notice. So whether that means he's down to 5, I don't know. But I think it's pretty good indication that Mizzou's a serious player here. If, again, not only they got a visit, but he's now rescheduling other visits that, Wisconsin's NIL program has been the butt of a lot of jokes. So if you see a kid jump up into Mizzou and instead of visiting Wisconsin, completely scratch that visit, that may be an indication of where things are heading. Is it Mizzou? I don't know. Alabama's a really good team. Michigan State's got a great history. Ohio State's got a new coach. Cincinnati, promising team. But to be in that top 5 is a lot better than to be on the outside in of 9 visits being scheduled and you don't get one of them. So things have changed, maybe not changed, but have become a lot more clear in recent days. So,
yeah, and it's one of those things where anytime you have a chance to get a guy on campus, you have to feel good about your chances.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna become the favorite. He was just on Alabama's campus. Um, I don't know if anybody's paid attention, but Alabama's got a lot better recent history to sort of talk about. But for all of his issues setting up a competitive non-conference schedule, Dennis Gates doesn't seem to have a whole lot of issues recruiting talented players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is going to be interesting to sort of track, because historically, Gates and CY have always been the guys who have sort of gotten into guys early and really developed that relationship. It helped them with Honor Boateng. It helped them with Marcus Allen. It looks like it's helping them a little bit with Nick Randall, Bashan. Ant Robinson, another guy who long history there. They did get on and close quickly with Trent Pierce. They did have more of an established relationship with Peyton Marshall, a little bit quicker of a turnaround with Trent Burns. But Hannah is not like Trent Pierce or Trent Burns, guys who were sort of like a little bit of a late riser, still, top 150 level guys. Like, this is a guy that's been towards the top of his class for the last couple of years, and Missouri seems to be kind of getting on late. That spells to me like it'll be interesting to see how well they do in trying to close them, but also that this may be a little bit more financially driven than maybe some other recruitments.
Yeah, and with high school kids, it's a little bit different, and I described this painstakingly in my program series last fall, so I'm not going to get into all that. But high school recruiting is different than portal recruiting, even in the NIL world. With basketball recruits, you've got big money freshman players, but you're talking a pretty limited number of those guys. We're talking a Cooper Flagg, a guy who's a one and done guy. He's going to command buku bucks, just like the top portal guys. Whereas the rest of the portal, it kind of, I don't want to say gradually decreases, but everyone's still concerned about that money. They all are, but there's, when you get down to the borderline Division I starters, they're still looking for money. Where when you come into high school recruiting, it's a little bit more than that. It's a little bit more old school recruiting, I guess, where connections really matter. It's not a speed dating contest. You go visit one place, they say the number you want, and you commit. That's not how high school recruiting is done. It never has been that way, and even today. So when you look at a kid like Hannah, who's on that borderline, how much money is he really willing to command? I mean, it's not a top dollar from high school ranks. It's not a top dollar in the NIL category in the portal recruiting world either. So it's kind of, is he the type of player that is going to be better his freshman year than what you could get for that amount of money in the portal? That's basically what it comes down to nowadays, because you can get that guy in the portal for that money and have a pretty good idea that that's the type of level or the level of player that you're going to get. There's always variance in whether the kid performs or not, as we saw last year. But if you have the finances, it's dependent on who you think is going to be a bigger impact player short term. Longer term is when you get more down into the, again, the guys rated more close to 100. But when you're bringing in guys like, even in the case of Honor Boateng, who is ranked similarly to Hannah, you have to pony up a little bit more for him than you would for guys who project to be around for 3 or 4 years for sure. And, take their lumps before they get on the court. So, it's not only a matter of this kid versus this kid. It's, do we want a freshman or do we want a junior or senior next spring that we can get for that same money? So that's kind of the competing interest, the evaluation of how you have to look at it. As far as what he wants, no idea. As far as where Mizzou values his talents versus anyone else, don't know. But that's how you kind of have to look at it now in the salary day and age.
And I'm going to complain really quickly because I really don't like that 247 still classifies a player's hometown. The city that they're from is the city where they're playing their high school basketball because
Branson's a hotbed.
Hanson is not a Missouri kid. Like, he is not a Missouri kid. If you go and you sort by, like, best prospects in Missouri, it's like all Link Academy kids. And it's just like none of these guys are Missouri kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we just, if you're from Missouri, like, he's a Wisconsin kid. Like, Nick Randall,
Milwaukee kid, to be clear, not Wisconsin, Milwaukee.
Yeah. Nick Randall's out in Arizona. He's not an Arizona kid. He's a Missouri kid. Like, that's where he should be ranked. Anyway, that's
Mizzou has a really strong recruiting class each year in high school now, thanks to school down there in Lake Taneycomo.
Yeah, freaking Branson. Yeah, I think Bossy even in his article had mentioned like Taneycomo or something like that, and it's like, oh, geez. Table Rock Lake,
nice country down there for golf.
Are they closer to Taneycomo? Because Taneycomo is like an offshoot of Table Rock, right?
It's all down there somewhere. I'm sure we'll have some members tell us about it on the message board later. But
yeah, everyone's gonna.
It's a nice area.
Hey, I have a lot of family in Springfield, Missouri, so I'm mostly familiar. We used to go to the Table Rock Lake a lot, but it was never really on the Branson side. It was a little bit further to the west. Yeah. I'm trying to remember the name of the town. It's one of those things that might get you censored if this was that kind of podcast where we were using bleeps, like not Noblik or something like that.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's Table Rock Lake, people. But yeah, so we're moving on from recruiting. It does look like we'll keep a close eye on what happens with Hannah.
And also, if you're a subscriber, look for Matt Harris to drop a lot of film on this tomorrow. That's why he's begged off of the podcast tonight, is he's crunching film as his new toy allows him to do. So look for that coming this weekend, and you'll have plenty of numbers and film on Mizzou's visitor this weekend.
So then the last thing that I want to talk about is your little question series, and we're not going to get too far in because we want to. I do actually want to try to keep these brief. Sorry for everybody that we're going to keep it to under an hour, I promise. But your most recent question was about what you called the Holy Trinity, and so I figured that's probably a decent place to start. If you are a subscriber, make sure that you're on the forums and reading up on Matt's questions for 24-25. We're going to briefly touch on this topic tonight, but there's way more in-depth stuff on what it's about. But you're basically trying to make the argument that Missouri is going to be like a top 10 team.
Yes, basically that's the gist of it. No, it's we've mentioned in the podcast and over the summer in our very in-depth discussions on the roster, the deep dives, that Mizzou has 3 guys on their team that, if things go reasonably well, we're not talking about seeing a jump like we saw from Demoy Hodge coming over from Cleveland State, where he went from a 32% three-point shooter to a 40% shooter here at Mizzou. That's uncommon. Or DeAndre Golston going from a guy who is, average at Milwaukee in the Horizon League and then coming out and having a really good year at Mizzou. Those are surprising things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what Tony Perkins did last year at Iowa. I'm talking about what Mark Mitchell did last year at Duke. And I'm talking about what Tamar Bates did last year on a pretty rough Mizzou squad that, didn't do well. But if those 3 guys perform, they, to me, have the analytical makeup to be all-conference quality players. And I had that in my mind, like how many teams have 3 players that could be this good. Uh, so I went and dug through some numbers. I massaged the parameters a little bit to fit a big enough sample, as far as the numbers are concerned. And I just really looked at three areas, and they're not super complex: minutes played, usage rate, and offensive efficiency. And all those things mean is how many minutes a player was on the court, how many possessions in those minutes he was involved in the offense, and how good he was at it. That's it. And looking at those three players' numbers, I went back and kind of set that as a baseline last year to see how many teams had three players that performed at that level. And there weren't that many. I mean, I think there were 5 high major teams and 8 teams total in Division One that had 3 players all clear the bars that each of those guys cleared last year. And these are high major players that did it at a high major level already. Mm-hmm. So we're not projecting them to make a big jump. It's just doing what they've already done.
Right.
There were 5 teams that had that, just 5 in all of high major basketball of 80 plus teams. So when you look at, is Mizzou going to be really good next year? I don't know. There's a lot more that goes into it than just offensive play of 3 players. But when you look at teams that really perform well offensively, I think when I broaden the parameters out a little bit, half of the top 25 in adjusted offensive efficiency had those 3 type of guys, 3 players of those type. That's crazy. And Mizzou already has 3 of them going into next year. So when you look at, are they going to struggle to win a game? No, absolutely not. They have good players. And that's before we even get down the depth chart when we're talking about a Marquez Warwick, Jacob Cruz, Caleb Grill, Anthony Robinson. All these guys have performed at the high major Division I level before. So if they can supplement those guys, they might be even better. So it was very interesting to me, and all the numbers are laid out there and hopefully explained pretty well. But, I like to look at the makeup of teams, and I was a little hesitant actually last year about Mizzou not having a go-to guy. Wrote a whole column on it over at Rock M. It's still up there, free for everyone to see. They ended up getting one of those guys in Sean East, which was a pleasant surprise. But to make the math work, everyone else needed to do a little bit more and be a little bit better, and they just weren't capable of that, especially after the injuries occurred. There wasn't much margin for error, where this year it's different.
Yeah, I think, the experiment of trying to basically like have 5 guys on the floor with everybody who is going to average 20% usage and shoot a bunch of threes. When that goes out the window, what's going to be your fallback? And I think that's one of the things that I've liked about the series that you've done so far is, pinpointing. I think what you can probably point out as what the coaching staff probably came to a realization to as well. And that's that, there's only so many things that you can count on. And it does seem to me like one of the things that they've, maybe it's just on paper, but they went and got guys who play defense. They went and got guys who force turnovers. They went and, and got guys who are also efficient on offense. And they're essentially, when you're doing all those things together, what you're doing is you're sort of trying to eliminate as much variance as you can. So you have a product that you can trust. And when they take the floor, you hopefully have a good idea of what kind of production you're going to get. I do think that is, if there's anything to be taken away from it, it is a benefit for this team, at least, that last year's team bombed as bad as they did, because it is going to allow this team to kind of fly under the radar. It's also probably going to allow them to fly under the radar by not playing anybody for a month. And so, I'm not saying they're going to beat Kansas at home. I would really like them to. That would make me very happy. I hate I hate losing to Kansas. But I think like that game is sort of an opportunity for, for Gates and for this roster to sort of assert that, we were really overlooked, because I fully expect them, most people, to have them probably 10th or 11th
at best in the league.
Yeah, and I've got my my game by game pick 'em out. Had a few results in already, and even people that know this is coming from a Missouri fan, although credit to Blake Lovell, Blake is still on the Gates train. But but it is one of those things where I think we are gonna, people are gonna be surprised to see that Missouri isn't bad again. I also saw some like stupid coach ranking, and somebody had Dennis Gates 16th. I'm like, going,
I was talking with Jim Root the other day over at Three Man Weave, and I sent him a snippet of what I had shared on the board. And I said, if you had these three players and you didn't know their names and you didn't know whose team they were on, where would you have this team ranked? These are the top three players. Just had the numbers. He was like, I don't know, probably pretty well. I'm like, what if I told you that was Mizzou? It's like, how much of this is perception versus how much of it is reality? Yes, Mizzou was bad last year. I mean, they were 0-19. They lost to Jackson State. It was a dirty, no good, terrible season. What difference does it make? It didn't impact him bringing in a top 5 high school class. It didn't impact him bringing in a top 5, top 10 portal class. It didn't impact everything that he did well as a coach his first year. Mizzou has gone from 11 wins to 25 to 8. If that doesn't tell you that it's a year-to-year proposition, I don't know what does. It's all about the team you built this year. The past matters not one bit. That's how I see it.
Well, I agree. Yeah, the transfer portal has certainly changed everything. NIL has certainly changed everything. The fact that the SEC is seemingly like 12, 13 teams who are really going to be competitive this year. Without completely outing Blake, he did have Vandy picked in the basement. And I just like that almost feels like. Yeah, it very much feels to me just like a reflex. And I think there's going to be a lot of that happening, and we're not going to be able to get away with that, year to year now. Like, you're really going to have to look deeply at these rosters, look at returning production, and not just returning production from the team the year before, but from where those guys were the year before they joined the team. Right. Because like that, it's like I talked about earlier in the summer, the amount of experience that's coming into the SEC this year is wild. Like the amount of point production alone of guys who have just played a lot of minutes, scored a lot of points at the Division I level is astronomical. We've never seen anything like this. It is going to create a very hyper competitive league. I think Missouri is very well positioned to be competitive this year. So how's that for an opening episode?
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah? We do okay?
Yeah, I got a little fired up. I hadn't been on here for a while, so I had to...
Hey, get some things off your chest.
Hey, you asked me about scheduling, and I gave you my opinion. So play games at home or on the road.
Play games that matter. Stop playing games that don't. So we're going to get out of here. Dive Cuts is going to go every other week until we get a little closer to the season. So probably, I think, 2 or 3 episodes of every other week. I am kind of still working on maybe a couple of interviews that we'll kind of toss in into the mix in off weeks, but we're gonna hit this every other week. The season is 2 months away.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to go start writing some previews. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Make sure that you are subscribed here. Make sure that you are subscribed at Rock M Plus. I think we're finally got some T-shirts on the way for folks that kind of like the T-shirts. We've been working on that. Site upgrades are coming. We've got new people working on things that are going to make the site better. Very excited about the future at Rock M Plus. Hop on board, get in forums. Tell me, tell Matt, tell the other Matt why we're right, why we're wrong. Talk about football. Make sure you listen to Before the Box Score. Am I missing anything?
No, go football.
Yeah.
Beat Buffalo.
You can still buy the football preview magazine, even though,
it's good. Good read.
Yeah, I mean, Mizzou really hasn't played anybody, so go buy the preview magazine, and we'll be back in a couple weeks. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Dear Rock M Plus listeners, readers, and subscribers, we are thrilled to announce our first ever digital Mizzou football review magazine. Inspired by the iconic newsstand staples like Athlon, Phil Steele, and Street and Smith, our team has created a PDF file jam-packed full of content for you to learn about the most anticipated Missouri football season maybe in history. Checking in at about 100 pages, we have in-depth previews of all 12 opponents, analysis of each position group, profiles of newcomers, exclusive photographs, features like a retrospective on the 2014 team, the evolution of Faurot Field, Luther Burden's place in Mizzou history, and more. We also have an analytics Q&A with Bill Connolly of ESPN, the founder of Rock M. We also have college football preview content and much more. This digital magazine is available now. It is $15 for purchase, with discounts available for premium Rock M Plus subscribers based on your membership tier. $10 for monthly members, $5 if you have an annual membership. Now is the time to become a member to secure your discount on this one-of-a-kind product today. We know that you're going to love this magazine, and we can't wait to have it on your devices. MIZ.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. And we'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.